Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. So as Rabbi Sarah mentioned, I come with two hats on this evening. One as a person who struggled and struggles with matters related to infertility, and also as a teacher, as someone who has responded to this challenge within our community through teaching and through text. So I want to begin by sharing briefly my own story, but the focus will be on how, as a community, we might respond with one particular instance of text as a way into this conversation. So my own story begins soon after my wedding. I naturally conceived, to my great shock. Never believed that I could. Given my petite size, I imagined that I would never be able to bear a child, and lo and behold, it seemed that I could, only to discover that that was not meant to be. At 13 weeks, I lost my first pregnancy, and had a tremendous amount of difficulty then in the aftermath of that. So there's loss, and then there's loss after loss, and DNC upon DNC and upon DNC, to rid my body of that. After a long struggle to try to conceive my first, we too ended up going through in vitro fertilization, and were blessed with a delicious little boy named Leib. He was my shalva after a very, very long struggle. When it came time to think of a second, again, my body was not capable. It needed another procedure, another hysteroscopy to become ready. And after that procedure, the fourth on my little uterus, we were able to conceive again through IVF, and we're blessed with another little boy named Nadiv. He was our act of great generosity on the part of God. In the aftermath of Nadiv's birth, there were more problems and more procedures on my poor little uterus, who still couldn't seem to rid itself of the placenta that he came with. So I had difficulty conceiving, but then difficulty letting go, it seemed, of pregnancies. In the aftermath of that, I was told that I cannot have more children. I can't say that without crying. So what is that? Is that infertility? I have two boys. And yeah, I'm still struggling with infertility. And the idea of potentially growing a family through different means that I never imagined for myself. So when I was going through the earliest stages, I was blessed to find partners in national organizations. Resolve in particular was very useful to me, but not very blessed in the Jewish community. I felt very much alone, very much alienated, very much isolated. And one response that I developed together at the time with the Drisha Institute was a support group for people like me who needed some help. And I'm a teacher at my core and a text lover at my core, and the way in for me was to think about how to mine our tradition for some healing wisdom. So I gathered a group together, which I called the Akarut and Akirut, from the language of Akara as a barren woman. Akirut refers to uprootedness. The feelings that come with infertility are so very much about being uprooted, having no place, having no roots, finding oneself without the capacity to nourish, all of that. And so we gathered week after week after week, and we looked at text together. Text became a third object in the room, a way into a conversation that was so very hard to have at the beginning, and yet also a reminder that we could find ourselves in this tradition that felt so very much like it was pushing us away. I mean that because of social circumstances and the ways that our communities are structured to be so very family-centric. And so it felt very healing to have a way in through Torah, through the Jewish tradition, to say, yes, you belong, and yes, you feel uprooted, and that's okay. And so we have some obvious go-tos in our tradition. We are at no loss for images of infertility, images of barrenness through the imahot. Every single one of them seemed to have a journey all her own. We don't really have models of those who don't succeed, and that's something that we had to contend with also. What of those who don't actually get to celebrate in the end? What of those who don't, at age 90 plus, have a Sarah moment that says the impossible is possible? Because sometimes the impossible is still impossible, and we needed to think about that too. And yet, I want to share with you this evening one small example of a way in which we found text to be a healing response. I want to share with you some of the texts themselves and also some of the beautiful Torah that emerged. A great byproduct of using text is not only for the ways in which it becomes healing, but the unforeseen insights that it also generates, because when you bring your full self in, amazing things come out. So I shared with you on your chairs just one small little piece, and again, this is just one example of so much of the learning and discussion that happened in that group. I should also just add that this became part of a curriculum that I studied with Dasi, among others, at Yeshivat Maharat. And so what began as a support group then became a kind of educational model. So if we're talking here about community responses, I want you to know that we're training leaders through Yeshivat Maharat, among others, I hope, to be sensitive leaders on this particular matter. And not only for those who are struggling to have a way in, but for those who are becoming leaders in the Jewish community to have a language to actually foreground a matter of such great import. So let us look at the story of Rachel. I suspect it's familiar for many of you in this room. ותרא רחל כי לא ילדה ליעקב, ותקנא רחל באחותה, ותאמר אל יעקב, הבה לי בנים, ואם אין מתה אנוכי. ויחר אף יעקב ברחל, ויאמר התחת אלוהים אנוכי, אשר מנע ממך פני בטן. Rachel saw that she had not borne any children to Yaakov, and Rachel envied her sister, and she said to Yaakov, give me children, and if not, I am dead. And Yaakov became angry with Rachel, and he said, am I instead of God who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? These few lines contain within them so many of the layers of this struggle. From Vatera Rachel Kilo Yadali Yaakov. Whose struggle is it? How many layers of disappointments are there? Who are we letting down? Rachel letting herself down. Rachel feeling that she's letting Yaakov down. All the children that aren't born are not only of the womb of the woman, but the families of great expectation waiting, the grandparents in waiting, the aunts and uncles in waiting. That's the load that is born in the struggle of infertility. It's not only the weight of what a woman isn't capable of, but the feelings of all the many people who are waiting for those unborn babies. But the jealousy, the envy, the walking down the street and seeing the pregnant bellies, your best friend is pregnant, and it kills you. And yet you love her, and it kills you still. But Tomer El Yaakov, hava livanim v'im ayin meta anochi, hava livanim, because as if you could, as if the power lies elsewhere, anywhere, if anybody could, let it be you. V'im ayin meta anochi, but if not, I am dead. That feeling of I am dead, I am lifeless, my life is meaningless, my mission is gone, all of that can feel so very real for those in the struggle. And yet beyond that, what is dead? My sense of self, my sense of myself as a woman, meta ha'anochiyut sheli, not just that I am dead, but my me-ness is dead, my sense of who I was meant to be, who I was destined to be, the fullness of my being, that has been emptied out through the emptiness of my womb. Vayichar af Yaakov berachel, and what's his response? Anger. How many of us in the room might identify with this? Where does the frustration go? So often it goes to anger, it goes to tension, it goes to marital problems, it goes to intergenerational problems. Where do we expel that disappointment? So often it turns into Vayichar af. Vayomer hatachat Elohim anochi asher mana mimech privaten. Yaakov's response is, who am I, God? Right? Who am I? I feel so impotent, says Yaakov, right? Referring, God is the potent one and I am impotent. I am the powerless one here. And yet he says it in rage. What do you think I am, God? Can I actually do this for you? I too am in this struggle, perhaps. And what about all the men who are struggling alongside of the women? How many men are experiencing male factor infertility, right? And how many of those are unseen also in our community? How many of those have I not seen, even in the context of these few words? Rashi says, "An meta anochi mikan lemi she'ein lo vanim shechashuv kemet," that the person who has no children experiences themselves to be like a corpse, lifeless, numb, despairing, without energy, without vibrancy. And if that weren't bad enough, the Gemara goes on to say, Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Kol Adam she'ein lo vanim chashuv kemet shene'emar hava li vanim v'im ayin meta anochi. V'tanya arba'a chashuvim kemet ani u'mitzora v'suma u'mi she'ein lo vanim. And I'll stop there. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says, a man who is childless is accounted as dead, for it is written, give me children or else I am dead. And it was taught, four are accounted as dead, a poor man, a leper, a blind person, and one who is childless. So we've gathered here a group of nebuchs, right? A group, those four people that you don't want to be in the community. You don't want to be the poor person, and you don't want to be the leper, and you don't want to be the blind person, and you don't want to be the childless person. These are all people, and the list could go on, of course, that we don't want to see, that we want to walk by, that we're afraid of, that we wish to isolate, the people we fear. They feel contagious. They feel scary. Like poverty, infertility can feel disempowering. Like illness, it can feel like an affliction. Like blindness, it can feel like an aimless place in which we cannot find our way forward, where we cannot see what can possibly come next. And so here we have a Gemara that I think only further entrenches those feelings of isolation and sadness, and the ways in which there's self and other in communities. But here's where I just want to add one little piece of hope, maybe, healing, maybe, insight for sure. This was spoken by one of my students in, one of those people who were with me on the journey early on in that first group of Akarut and Akirut. And she chose to read this text differently. And she said, maybe Kol Adam she'ein lo vanim chashuv kemet doesn't mean you have to feel dead, but rather, what if we read it as Kol Adam she'ein lo vanim nechshav kemet? No, sorry, chashuv kemet, slicha. Chashuv kemet is as important as a dead person. What is the place of a met in our community, frankly? It's a place of great kavod. What we do with a person who has died is we watch over them. We have the mitzvah of shmira. We have the mitzvah of livaya, to escort that person. That person is held, that person is remembered, that person is placed in the center of our lives for a period of time, and their family is held alongside of them too. And so what if we imagined those struggling with infertility as chashuvim kemetim, people who need our honor, who need our guarding, who need our escorting, who need our sensitivity. Because that is what a community of care really looks like. They see who's before them, and they take responsibility for those before them. So I'll end there to say, just here's a little moment of a way in which text can help respond to pain. Text can help hold pain. Text can help name pain. And may that be one small response to what I imagine to be the pain of some of those in the room, and definitely many of those not in this room today.